A very pleasant good evening and welcome to the Ken Rampersaud Show here on Island Zone Radio. Um, Hope you guys can hear me. There was a bit of silence just now, and I see Dr. Narayan that is in studio with me, which is a great thing. Good evening, Dr. Narayan. That how are you?
Good evening, sir. I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I can't hear you, but let me put up my volume. All right, go ahead. How
All
are you?
right. I was saying to you, I'm doing great. How about you?
All right. Well, it's a little tonight's show will be a
Yep.
bit different tonight. Um,
Mhm.
and as you know, the reason why. But let me open the show, and then I'll give you a chance to think of some of the things that you may have want to say. Like I said, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Ken Rampersaud Show on Island Zone Radio. Ladies and gentlemen, please share this show. It's very important. Tonight, our hearts are heavy as we reflect on one of the most devastating tragedies in recent Guyana history, the sinking of the MV Barima. What began as a routine journey from Georgetown to Port Kaituma has turned into an unimaginable heartbreak for families across our nation. As rescue team continues their tireless efforts, many families are still waiting and praying for news of their loved ones. This tragedy reminds us how precious life really is and how quickly everything can change. Behind every name is a mother, a father, child, grandparents, siblings, friends, or neighbors whose life has been forever affected. Tonight, we remember those who have lost their lives. We pray for those who are still missing. We give thanks for the survivors and we honor the brave men and women risking their own safety in the search and rescue effort. Tonight, we begin this program and let us set aside politics, blame, and division. This is a time for compassion, unity, and support for the grieving family and communities. There will be time for investigations and accountability. But tonight, our focus on humanity, hope, and healing. On behalf of the Ken Rampersaud Show, I extend our deepest condolences to every family affected by this tragedy. We stand with you, we grieve with you, and we continue to pray that every possible effort is made to bring our answers and comfort to those still waiting. May God bless the people of Guyana, protect those still that searching efforts, every grieving family, and guide our nation through this painful time. I want to tell you that the MV Barima tragedy is one of the worst maritime disaster in Guyana in decades. From since I know my time, based on the latest official report, this happened Saturday night on July the 18th. As I said before, it was a trip from Georgetown to Port Kaituma, which is in Region 1. The vessel capsized at around 7 to 10 miles offshore near Pomeroon Essequibo coast and sending a distress signal at 11 p.m. I want to tell you as I'm speaking now, this is some of the numbers that we have. 133 people on board, 16 passengers, and 17 crew members. And up to now, we have 67 people have been rescued, including 15 children, 27 deaths confirmed, and 83 remain missing. Also, what I was told that the crew they were arrested and they are in locked up, may I say, because they're proof that they were under the influence of marijuana and possible alcohol too. So, Dr. Narayan, a very good evening to you again, and thank you very much for always coming on this show with me to especially when we have tragedies in Guyana, when Guyana really needs us, and when I heard this happen, really, it I was just numb. But as the days go by, like this morning, I woke up with a headache, and I as a big man, elderly, I was tearing up every time I hear stories about what's going on in Guyana. The mother who lost seven children and some wife who lost their husband. What's your take in all of this as someone who I believe is strong too and who have heard many stories? What's your take on all of this?
Well, first of all, I've not heard something like this in a long time. I have not experienced, something like this a long time. Obviously, I work in mental health. I work in grief, so I do hear these stories every day. In fact, last Friday, I was at a funeral. Somebody that I know passed away at the age of 40 something and whatnot, and things of that sort. So these things happens. It's every day. Death is natural and all of that. But I mean, to hear what I've heard, one woman, as I understand it, lost 7 children. Like, where do you begin? But honestly, for me, when I was watching, apart from my own feelings and not understanding, and and being in disbelief and all of that, I watched the video a few times for a purpose. And honestly, for me, based on my own experience and so forth, I actually I I I was able to feel the pain. And I know that's probably not the right thing to say because I don't know what the mother's feeling, but I was able to see in her eyes, and that's one reason I didn't like the idea that people were interviewing her, like, like so fresh, and so forth. But in her eyes, they were all red, right? And then she was obviously she was speaking, and then she could not, control herself, and then she break down. And when she break down, I'm telling you, Ken, like my whole body started to kind of shake, and then I had to kind of pause. I kind of had to pause because I myself, at the end of the day, as you mentioned earlier, which I believe is so powerful, at the end of the day, behind every title and all of that, it's a human being. We have feelings as well, too, right? Um, it's a very messy situation right now. Obviously, the whole situation is unfortunate. The only sad thing that makes it even more complicated is all the stuff that I've been seeing on social media, people coming up with their own conclusion, and people trying to, somehow link in, politics with this and all of these types of things. And I think that's very hard for the community itself. So people need to kind of, step back a little bit. Right now they need time to kind of do proper investigation. I'm hopeful that they will do proper investigation because based on what you've said, using some sort of drugs or whatever the case may be, I've heard that as well too. So obviously they have to do some sort of investigation to kind of make sure they have all the pieces in place. But I will not be surprised in any shape or form, right? That these kinds of unethical practices happens. Guyana, the culture is very different there. When I go to places here in Canada, especially the Canadians, so to speak, very disciplined. If you are allowed to drink, they will drink like a glass of wine and then they're done. If you're not allowed to drink, then nobody will be drinking. And I could not believe, and this is nothing new to you and to the people who are watching, listening. I was so embarrassed. Like when I went to the funeral last Thursday, there were guys in the parking lot, in the room of where the ceremony was taking place. That place was empty in there. The parking lot was full, and I didn't understand it. But then at the end of it all, when I was leaving, I realized guys, they were there, they were just drinking. And so when it comes to these kinds of things, I think people like yourself or myself and the community, they really have to kind of make sure they pause before they respond. I get it, of course, Ken, that people are upset, they're disappointed, and so that's one of the ways for people to deal, with situation as such. So a lot of people, you will see the anger in them. Sometimes it's not intentional, and so forth. Every death there, it's kind of heartbreaking, but I have to tell you the story with the mother losing 7 kids. I cannot get it. Like it's gonna take me a while to for it to sink in. And that mother is such a strong woman because for me, a lot, and I've heard it before, and I hope that she gets the support she needs so that she doesn't think along the line. I've also heard situation where people are saying that what's the point of living now when I have no kids at all, things of that nature, right?
Oh,
So very unfortunate situation, of course.
yes, sad too. I really feel bad for her, and it's so many sad stories. And I really do hope that they find their bodies because you and I know that the family will need some form of closure with all of this. And when the dust is really settled, when we all gone and stop paying attention to these people will need some kind of closure. How does a tragedy like this affect survivors, family, and the wider community? And as we know that despite we are far away from this incident that happened on Saturday, how you think they're going to deal with this?
Oh, for sure. And you can already see how people are dealing with it, because the thing is, people already have their own kind of trauma happening in their lives.
Right,
Coincidentally, there was a gentleman who called me and whatnot, and he couldn't afford to pay me, but as you know me, I always put people before profit. This is what I do
right,
for a living. I went to school for this, but I'm not gonna say to him, I cannot you cannot talk to me, right?
right,
And
right,
I got this individual, but honestly, when the guy shared his story with me, I was heartbroken. I felt bad for him with everything that he's going through. So my what I'm trying to say to you here is that people are already going through their own individual trauma, and when you have these kinds of things, it adds to it. It doesn't make situation any better. And the fact that many we do have some survivors. I'm not sure of the numbers, but we've you I'm not sure what's the recent number in terms of what was provided, but
yes,
obviously we have a few survivor. But yes, they managed to survive, but I can tell you one thing based on research and my experience and so forth. They are still in shock right now. They
right,
are in shock, right?
yes.
And so they will. It's gonna sink in, as time goes on. And in some cases, many of them will need help for the rest of their life. They will be afraid to even continue with their daily lives, right? Meaning that they might not want to go into a boat anymore, things of that sort. Family members, or not necessarily family members, like people who live in the community in particular. Obviously, some people have no other choices. These people probably didn't have any other choice to take a plane and things of that sort. That's one of the reasons they use that method in traveling. But for some people, they will be trapped in that mindset, and it definitely can affect them in terms of their daily function, can affect the relationship. They won't be the same person again. Having said that, though, I want to say this much: if they get the professional help they need, if people kind of step away and stop blaming each other, and stop blaming government and whatnot, and let these folks have the support they need. And right now it's the survivor, meaning that, like, including the families, the people that are affected, they really need the support. And when I say support, I'm talking about that that professional support, right? And if they don't get it on time, or get it like right away, and if for some reason things have to be delayed before they actually get it, um, that's going to be extremely hard. Not a lot of people will come out, because people don't know. Some people don't know, or they don't know how to reach out themselves, because they are just kind of, in their little bubble. Same situation with the fella I talked to today. I've kind of asked him, I said, like, do you have, like, family and kids, and friends and whatnot? And his response to me was, he doesn't want to burden anybody, kind of thing, because he knows that, people have their own life happening. Amazing gentleman, had a really good life in Guyana and whatnot. Very knowledgeable individual, but people do go through different challenges. No different with these folks here, right? And so, people have to be genuine with their help, and people have to accept that whatever help is being given, that it's there for that real purpose. People cannot say, well, I'm not going to take the help, because it's not real help, and so forth, because right now it's best extremely messy, and that's not doing the community any good. I see all the political pieces that's happening. It's a shame that people cannot separate their personal values from their professional values, to try to help the family, try to make sure that together, we can work this through. It is unfortunate, but I'm assuming that's the culture there, because I don't see those kinds of behavior here. I mean, I'm not,
Right.
I shouldn't say that. We have little one or two things here and there, but it seems like the culture there, not to put Guyana down in any shape or form. Guyana is still developing, and I think it still has a far way to go when it comes to these types of pieces in terms of mental health and, being vulnerable if you have to.
I totally agree with you. Guyana have a far way to go. And it's a shame that every time something happens, it has to be about the president and um, about politics and race. And I tell you, it's such a shame that we, over so many years, that we still hold on to that. Anyway, what are some of the common reactions, emotional reactions people may experience after hearing or living through such a disaster? And you said it right too. Some people may not be want to travel in boat again. You know, they would not want to do that. So, what would you say to those people who we as you and I know that this can bring on PTSD on people when they
Yeah.
boat pass near to them or when they see a boat that will just come back to them. So
Yeah,
what you say
and
to
yeah,
those
so
people?
yeah. So on sort of first part here, before I kind of respond to your second piece. So obviously, I want folks to know that based on people's experience, they will react, in ways that might not be the way we will react. Like I will react in certain way, kind of thing, because I've kind of developed skills how to manage things and so forth. Am I upset? Absolutely. Am I disappointed? Absolutely. Because for me, without even seeing any sort of result in terms of investigation, because that's kind of ongoing, just by hearing what was happening and so forth, it goes to show that something went wrong along the line, or it could be certain things was a norm, and nobody was predicting something like this to kind of happen. I know that it is extremely easy for me to say, well, people have to move on with their life.
Hmm.
That's going to be the best advice. So, because at the end of the day, we cannot allow anything to hold us back, because we still have to move forward. Obviously, some people, for some people, might take a longer time, but we cannot live our life in fear.
Right.
Because, right, like that, and that means that some people might need some additional support to kind of make it work for them. But people cannot live the life in fear, because like people, generally speaking, sometimes some people do not want to even travel by plane too. Some people just don't like those things. I have coworkers, they don't travel by plane, so sometimes work is required for us to travel and whatnot, and some people don't want to go on all sides of things. But I think people have to kind of still remind themselves that in life, certain things you and I don't have control of. And I'm only speaking, and this is not a research thing and whatnot, but I want to say this. For me personally, when it's your time, it's your time. And that doesn't mean that we are saying, well, that's okay, and so forth. Like we have obligation to make sure we put pieces in place. But at the end of the day, when it's your time, when you're destined, when it comes to the end of you being here, because we're just passing through here, and
Right.
so you'll find that you work in the you work as a nurse. So some you'll see you have a kid born, and the kid survive for a few hours and kid is gone, or the kid a few days. All of these things kind of happen. It's just that we have to kind of not allow any of that. Not easy to do. And I want to remind people, not easy to do, but we cannot let anything hold us back. If not, all we're doing, we're making situation worse. That's one of the reasons the support. It is so amazing when you have the whole support, the whole community can support each other. It is such a powerful thing that I can tell you. But you really have to have a different kind of mindset. Some people, for whatever the reason is, their mindset is extremely negative. As soon as something goes wrong, they blame the president. They see something goes wrong, they blame the PPP party, and vice versa and so forth. People have to get away and start to think maturely, because when I see it, that doesn't mean I'm better than anybody else, and whatnot. But the thing is, when I see certain things, for me, I find it to be extremely childish. Just see like grown people will kind of behave in this kind of way, despite the fact that we have grieving family. Many of them are very poor people, right?
Yes.
And that in itself, and so the whole unfortunate situation is one thing, but keep in mind these people will have to find a way to get back into the community and kind of function again, and that's going to be hard. In fact, the fella I spoke with today, he said to me, he got low get he was let go from his job. I'm not mentioning his name here and so forth, so if the individual is watching, don't take this personally. We want to help people here. um that's because he's not able to function how he used to. and that's because of all the mental health pieces that you know of and so forth. And so these folks think about it. One lady lost 7 kids. I would hope that she will get all the support so that possible, as the government mentioned today, that they will maximize the resources for the family and all of these types of things. Because I think it's gonna make more sense for this lady to to make sure that she has, she doesn't have to struggle or sell in the market and all of these types of things based on what she's going through. So that's like a whole different kind of thing. They are not there yet. Obviously, they're assessing the situation and so forth. I saw people calling for the president to resign and a whole bunch of different things. It's a lot of stupidity going on there. And sorry if I'm kind of adding those pieces, but it all is happening. People are saying all of these things because of these situations. So people are kind of just upset. They're just responding in ways that they don't know any better, which is a dangerous thing because you have all of these kinds of negative energy feeding and people don't know any different. Because when I read those comments, it can hurt your heart too, because people are agreeing with certain things I'm saying. So, my goodness, so much to learn here. That people don't know the truth, or people don't know certain things, and yes, people are supporting these no these narrative. But at the end of the day, the best advice I can give folks, and not necessarily people who are affected in terms of losing a family per se, but people in the community and even us here, Ken, right? We are affected in some shape or form. Like I can tell you, like I was affected because I have kids. I have 3 kids, and like when it happened, I always stay connected with my kids. I always message them and say, hey, can I pick you up now? Those kinds of communication. That's my way to kind of check in and to know and to hear that this lady lost 7 kids. That's weird. It's a very unfortunate situation. But
You know,
again, we cannot let any of that to
you
hold us
know,
back. Go ahead.
yeah. It meant you lose one child, and it's tough. What about losing 7 children? So you are right. She will need to get. They will have to get a lot of support for her.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
let's personalize this. As we all know that you are a social worker, and this is the job that you're doing. If you and this woman have to sit down, right?
mhm,
um, and you have to interview her and counsel her, what are some of the things that you will tell her to do to help her with this phase, to know that
mhm.
she was there, and to know that she was sitting right with her kids and they just disappear, they gone, and she could not have saved them.
Oh
um,
my goodness,
what
yeah.
what are some of your advice you have? Imagine
Yeah.
as a parent, you see 7 of your children, poof, they gone, they gone in the water, they disappear. What would be your consultation be like?
Yeah. So I will have a heart attack. I'll tell you that much for sure. But to kind of answer your question, I don't know if I have the strength to even do that, despite the fact that I consider myself strong. But um, we can be broken down in different ways too. Ideally, I will want to ask her what's important to her right now, you know,
Mhm,
um, and I will work with her based on her pace, so to speak. Depending what she wants. There's sometimes people lose faith as well too, kind of thing, and for some people it keeps them connected to the spiritual side of things. People who are really really strong, in that sense. So all of those things kind of help. But whatever they want in terms of moving forward, because there's always a good chance that regardless of what I say might not make any difference to that lady, but we want to make sure that we give her that assurance that we are here for her, and mean that, right? Mean that in a sense that we cannot just wait for her to kind of reach out when she needs us, because she may not have that mental capacity to do that, right? So I think being present, really, and really we cannot be judgmental in these kinds of situations for sure. So that lady, honestly, that lady's in shock. I have not done an assessment like in terms of the in-person thing, but I can tell you based on my knowledge looking at that lady, I'm not sure how the hell she managed. I so admire her strength, managed to do an interview. I have a difficult time to even respond to your question here. based on the situation, and I'm not connected in any shape or form, like, in terms of, I'm a human being. I think that's one reason, I feel that connection there. But the fact that that lady was able to speak there, it's like she's extremely strong there. I mean, there's a good chance also that she can come to the realization that they are in better places now. We don't know that. Nobody knows what happened after death. But when people have certain sort of faith, she might accept the fact that, look, they're in a better place now, and all these other things. And those things can motivate people, though they can keep them going, right? To kind of have that kind of belief system. So anything that she will need, you know um, I think the key point, is to make sure that she has those kinds of support. But at the end of the day, is what she wants. If she says that I don't believe in, in therapy, I don't believe in God anymore, then I have to accept that as well too, right? I have to meet her where she's at, but give her the assurance, like as I said, that we are here for you. But I have to give the many of the ministers credit. Like I was almost able to put myself in their shoe. Like when they were speaking with the family, I watched some of those conversation, and I have to say that they've done an amazing job. And if anybody think differently, you want to check yourself out into the mirror, because at the end of the day, those ministers and so forth, they are people like you and I. They have families as well too. This is not something they did and they were hoping for, kind of thing, right? So they are under a lot of, not necessarily pressure per se, but they are under a lot of stress, because this is not a little thing that we've seen. This is a big thing, like, right?
Of
And because
course.
I see, like, even like people from Trinidad, they Prime Minister from Trinidad, send some people to kind of assist and things of that sort. So it is a big thing. I'm hoping though that this does not happen again. These things, based on whatever comes up in terms of their findings, a lot of things can be prevented, and it's unfortunate that sometimes things like this has to happen before changes are kind of taken into consideration or kind of seriously as well too.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I want to say hi, good night to Ryan Jeffrey. We have Veronica Jaglal. A very good evening to you. And to those of you who I can't see, good evening and thanks for watching. And please share the show with your family. Now, is there, when you come to grieving, and we know that there is different stages, right? And we may
Mhm,
know that
mhm.
this mother right now probably is in a shock stage. Is there a right way and a wrong way to grieve, or people grieve at different stages?
Absolutely. Good question. I think this is something people should pay attention to, because at some point they will be in that kind of situation then where they will be grieving themselves. And so obviously, people do grieve differently. So my mother, for example, she passed away a few months ago, but I had lost a brother by suicide, and so she wasn't able to accept, that he's gone, kind of thing. So she continued to kind of grieve, all of these years and decades and things of that sort. Where some people are, I don't want to use the word strong, but they kind of view differently, where they can manage to still navigate. That doesn't mean that, everything will be perfect. One thing I can tell folks though here, based on experience, based on resource and so forth, when it comes to debt, you will always, always, always have some time when you will be reflecting, and you'll cry and all of these other things. So that will become part of your life, like that. I can say openly. So it's not like, people wouldn't be able to function anymore. Over time, people will share with me actually, said, "Oh, I feel somewhat better now. I'm moving on and so forth." That does not mean that they don't think of something, of their loved ones, what life could have been for them, especially in this situation. There are some small kids, as I understand it, and so forth. But I think, you really have to have real professional people to help these folks, so that way they can grieve at their own pace. And so sometimes coming to a therapy session, for example, it could be that person comes and cry for an hour. I'm stronger than I thought though, because I've been in a session where all I had to listen to just cry for a whole hour actually.
Wow.
Um, yes, I just listened to that cry for a whole hour. So this person was in definitely crisis for sure. Um, but the fact that that person made it there to that session, right? This is how I view it. That's the starting point for them to start to kind of heal. And so things wouldn't go in a structured way. It becomes a bit tricky when you have a system in place and when it's like free counseling and so forth, and it's funded by the government and so forth. Things are structured as you would know, right? You have 12 sessions, and then when the 12 session you're kind of done and so forth. But grieving at your own pace is key, and it should be supported. And and that's one reason it takes special people to do these kinds of role. And because I my belief, religious belief might be very different than yours, but when I have you in front of me, this has absolutely nothing to do with what I believe in. This has nothing to do with what you believe in. This has to do with the issue that you're dealing right now, and what is it that I can do to walk with you, kind of thing, right? To make things better for you, kind of thing. And a lot of the times, there are different models, obviously, of therapy, but a lot of the times, folks are able to figure out things, but with some guidance along as well, too, right? Depending how their own skill sets and those kinds of things. But definitely at their own pace. And some people, like I said to you, it might be a forever thing. And with that mother, I can see, and I'm hope that I'm proven wrong. But that mother, I don't know the age of her, but she seems to be in her late 40s, something like that, or I don't know. But it's 7 kids. She'll be working for a long time. I think that's a fair statement for a conversation.
Yeah, good night, Miss Anita Diaram. What she said, bless, good night to all. So sad our prayers and thoughts are with everyone during this difficult time. What a tragedy in Guyana. Very, very sad. Also, we have Julie Can. Thank you very much for tuning in. I want to say to, in a world where we have a lot of, we got internet service, we have all these social media, what are some of the things that we should say to people, and what are some of the things that we should not say, what we should post and what we shouldn't post? Because we, as society now, we in a new era. We are there. As soon as something happens, we run with it. What should we say to these people who are like this mother who lost 7 children?
Yes. So for some reason, people feel that they have, an entitlement to say anything, anyhow, and things of that nature. I think people need to, you know, step back a little bit. Sometimes not saying anything at all, it's totally fine, right? Because um, all the stuff that people put on there in terms of their own, based on their own opinion and things of that sort. Eventually, family gets, they get to see it as well too. Some of them, it might be a good thing as well too. But I think the simplest thing is just to, give your condolences at this time, kind of thing, and some prayers. I think prayers. I think most people will agree that prayers can go a long way, right? And I think that's all the family would need right now. Nobody needs to know anybody's, any sort of opinion as to who caused it and all of that. Right now we have the professional people looking at it, and the president made it very clear that that they're doing a thorough investigation. Is going to be done independently, and I think people who are paying attention will know that the president is keen when it comes to those kinds of things. That I can tell you. In the past, I've seen two minister had to resign, in his cabinet here. And so what that means is, if it comes to that point, then it comes to that point. But people cannot make this decision based on somebody's opinion. You have to do a proper investigation, and then you kind of do that way. Here in Canada, it's a little bit easier. For example, where I live, one of the ministers, for some reason, he spent, I don't know, $25,000 one night at a hotel for what God knows what. People didn't like that, and so people said, "Look, you should resign. Actually, you cannot be wasting taxpayer dollars." With any question, he just resigned. Right? So they do things a little bit different here because I mean, their own conscience as well too. But I think they're to answer your question, I think it's important for people to be mindful that yes, it might be tempting to say certain things. I um I was attempting to do a video, but I had to cool myself down too, because the video maybe would have not turned out to be the way I was hoping it to be, and so I probably do it, eventually. But I wanted to make sure that I give some good thought
Right,
first
right.
before I kind of say certain things, just like when you're sending an email somewhere, I always say to my staff that, when you're saying when you want to send an email, and if you're not in your right frame of mind, you're thinking you want to get your point across, I always encourage them to wait 24 hours before you do that, and so forth. So right now, for those of you who are watching, listening, you are smart people. It's just that Ken and I decide to kind of do this here because this is what Ken likes to do. This is how he makes his contribution. Um, and the fact that you're watching, the fact that you're sharing and commenting and so forth, this is your way to actually be part of this. And so the best advice I can give you is continue to, give your condolences and support that way. But you want to make sure you have concrete information. You can be an advocate. There's not wrong in being an advocate, but you want to make sure, you don't do guessing game kind of thing, right?
Mm,
It's just going to make things worse because that's not what's needed right now, because we have people taking care of those things, that I can tell you.
right.
So we just have to kind of support in ways we can, and also look at yourself too. You yourself might need, you folks will need some support too, because for me it really got me thinking kind of things. So for me it's like a wake-up call in different ways. Like for
Absolutely.
example, I said to my daughter just now, after we finish this interview here, we'll kind of go for a drive kind of thing, and just random drive. Anyway, and so forth. So it kind of even give me that a different kind of thinking that, as we keep saying, that today we're here and tomorrow we may be gone. So it's
Mm,
not a straight line kind of
true.
situation here, but people need to kind of being mindful, and people are smart. But for some reason, people leverage all of this for different purpose, and I can see it clearly, which is a very sad thing.
Osha Azimola, a very good evening to you. Thank you very much for tuning in. Shaliza Ali, watching all the way from Guyana. Thank you very much for tuning in. Rhonda Spencer Tom, a very good evening to you. Juliet Etwaru, good evening. She said, our hearts goes out to the family. Definitely. You know, with a tragedy of this magnitude, how community, churches, organizations can help? How can we help too in the diaspora? If you can give us an idea, how can we support something like this when we are far away, or even some people who are very close?
Absolutely. And so people are, and the good news is that people are willing to give that helping hand. But I think people have to find a way to work together. And that's going to be the most challenging thing, because no matter what the government is doing right now, for some reason, you have a handful of people still putting, the government down and all of that. And on a side note, I can confidently say that in a very long time, we have not had these kinds of leadership in Guyana. That I can tell you. Not saying that everything is perfect. Not saying that, there's not, room for improvement in certain areas and all of these types of things. But the reality is, and the truth is, Guyana is in really good shape in terms of the leadership. Not too many people can go and represent Guyana the way our president is, representing Guyana right now and so forth. The thing is, the best solution right now will be for folks to kind of come together. That's the key point. If
Right.
everybody try to do their own little thing and say, look, I'm going to do this because I think this is the right thing and so forth, with no proper communication with each other, honestly, they're doing the people a disservice there. And it's sad because, like, that's the saddest part, to see what's happening there. Like, people see it as an opportunity to kind of do some mischief, right? But people are helping. I can see how people are openly helping. They're doing what they can, and that's not an issue really right now. I think the biggest thing right now is to discover people. I'm not sure if they have a good system to know for sure how many people were in that boat. That I don't know. I have some mixed messages there, kind of thing. But
Right, right.
right. So right now they need to make sure, like, everybody, it's gonna be hard to do because today we are into the third day kind of thing almost here. But you have to keep going. So right now, to get back to what you've said earlier, the closure will be important. So
Absolutely.
yes, the person is gone, and that's hard. There's no question about that. But not having the opportunity to do the final rites, in terms of
Yes.
religious way, or at least you have that satisfaction, will be extremely painful. They will have to live with that extra
Jesus.
stress, for the rest of their life. That's kind of that's hard. So they are looking and sorting. So yeah, so I think they're spending a lot of energy right now on the unnecessary thing, and they're burning themselves out. Benefit burning themselves out, not only the physical aspect, like mentally, people are just stressing out themselves with all of these, negative thing with what the government is not doing right and all of these types of things. And people not realizing that this is not a president for a temple, right? It's not a president for a church. This is a president for Guyana, and everybody's keeping an eye on Guyana now because Guyana is developing. That president was not in Guyana in the first place, and that's one reason the prime minister,
Mark Philip.
he was yes, he was acting as the president during that time, and so forth. So I saw people putting like videos, oh, the president, how come the president wasn't there, and all these kinds of things. Like these people have to be high school dropouts, man. Sorry that I'm saying this, kid, but people have to come together. That's the bottom line. It does not matter, like, you and I can do that work. People need to come together and don't worry about, the president is not sitting and there waiting for something to happen and kind of respond. That's not his job. The president is running a country, kind of thing. There's a reason why we have ministers. The reason why we have frontline people. People have to start to do things ethically, and that's not happening though. And then in the end of it all, the president will get blamed and so forth. So the helping hand, actually, Guyana is in Guyana is in good shape right now to help the family financially. They will be able to do that. That's not an issue. It's just that to deal with additional stress with the blaming game, that's going to be the hard part for sure. Because even though they might find concrete evidence and say this is what actually took place, and it might be a settled thing, you'll have a handful of people who will twist it and turn it into something else.
You know, as we are talking about the president, I want to add my little piece too. Despite how I feel or who's ruling the country, um, the president was out of the country. I don't know where he went. Um, and everybody has their life to live, despite whatever you do or whatever position you hold. He's a public figure in Guyana. He's the president, and he have rights to go wherever he wants to go. The good thing that he did, or I want to say the presidential thing that he did yesterday, was get back to Guyana because Guyana needs him. And so I commend him for doing that. Guyana need you, you head back to Guyana. So I don't care, and I'm reading that people are saying that they didn't see him fly out at this airport or that airport. It doesn't matter. What really matters is that the country had an emergency. The president was not in the country, but he made a flight out of the country, out of wherever he went, and head back to Guyana because he knew Guyana needs him, and that's commendable. Any prudent leader would have done the same thing. So kudos to the president. Hello to Benny Banana and John from Queens. Good evening, guys. Thanks for tuning in. So, in a time like this, we all want to complain, but let's try to see, like I said today, let's try to see how best we can help Guyana. We in distress, and we need to put aside our political differences and whatever differences we have, our hate, and
Mhm.
let's lead with love. You know what I'm saying? What signs indicate that someone may need professional help, mental help, when it comes to this kind of situation? What should people look out for? Should we expect that mental illness should rise, especially in the Amerindian community? What should we look for?
Well, for sure. So first of all, for some reason, and it's a shame though, for some reason, the Amerindians, as we say in Ghana, or First Nations and so forth, as we say here, they always seem to have the short end of the stick,
Yes,
unfortunately,
yes,
right? And
yes, ma'am.
and 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 that's a fair statement. That seems to be, generation kind of thing and whatnot. But I know improvements have been made. In fact, the vice president was explaining as to why he believed that they should have access to their own money, and they decide how they want to spend that money. Because when they did some project and they said that, look, we will give them this money, and then somebody in the audience asked that, how is it that they will be spending that money? And the vice president, that's up to them how they want to do it. And so I think that culturally they have culturally they have their own way to deal with their mental health and so forth. But I think in a broader society we have to make ourselves visible and kind of remind ourselves that not everybody will reach out for help. Like that's
Right,
the
right.
bottom line. People don't do it. I was so grateful of the individual who reached out to me today, and the fact that he's Guyanese as well to made it even more special. And I had to assure him that I want to let you know that our discussion, what you share here, like doesn't go anywhere, so that he understand what the difference is and so forth. So we now have to be mindful that people might not be reaching out to us, but that does not mean that they don't need the help. So I would suggest, once you do the investigation and do the assessment and so forth, like ongoing check-in and so forth until you have like a professional people to kind of sign off together and say, look, they're kind of good to go, but leave that invitation open. But my good guess and based on resource and so forth, this will shake them up a lot. And so we need to make sure that we don't let it slip through the cracks or thinking that or say to ourselves, look, nobody's reaching out, everything seems to be okay, or kind of avoid it, right? Because as you would know, not too many people talk about mental health. I know it's obviously it's still a stigma. And me working in mental health it's also me working out of my comfort zone because I never wanted to work in mental health. It's just that I embraced what came, my
Your
way,
part.
and
Yes.
and so on. Because when you're younger, you don't know, you're trying to figure out yourself and all these types of things. But it is needed, kind of thing, because even without that situation, I can almost assure you that people had some sort of mental health challenges in the first place, right? And the fact that they have this going on, we're not dismissing whatever they were going through. This is now additional layer that they have to deal with, right? Extreme painful. I'm not sure if people experience any sort of trauma or depression or any kind of stress or loss and so forth, but the body reacts differently, and for some people it's always burning inside, and so they go to the doctor, they do x-ray, and they say they can't find anything, right? They can't
Right.
find anything, because at the end of it all they're telling you it is stress. You know what I mean? And so yeah, so we have to be aware. And what I mean by this, I want folks to know that I'm automatically saying that we always have to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves, right? Because we cannot feed off them in buckets. So when I say, okay, well, consider lending a hand or making sure that we keep an eye on things or eye on people, make sure we are doing our piece. I'm also telling you in a different way that we have to take care of our own mental health, take care of our own self. That way we're in a good position, good position to kind of help out. But somebody have to stay on top of it though, because now people might be saying all kind of different things, but somebody has to follow through that the requests of these families are fulfilled, right? That's going to be the key thing. And I think it can be done. It can be done. We cannot change the past, obviously, but we can be with the family to make sure they know that they're not going through this on their own. And that's exactly what was said by the ministers. And I was very pleased and very happy to hear them.
You know, Dr. Narayan, that we are following the news out of Guyana. And one of the things that we know, it's a lot of children was affected by this. A lot of children probably died. A lot of children may have lost a friend in this incident. How do you, as a parent or a school teacher, talk to our kids about these kind of things? That listen, mommy, or they come and say, mommy, listen, I did not see Patricia at school today, or I did not see Pam at school today. What happened? How do you talk to these children? How do you console them?
Yeah. So first of all, the teacher or the social worker, if you have one, I believe some school have social workers now, because one of my cousins is a social worker in Ghana, um, work in the school system. They have to have that knowledge, and they have to have that knowledge in grief and loss. Because as you would know, social work is a very broad thing. So that doesn't mean a social worker will automatically know how to navigate, like a grief. conversation and things of that sort. And so once you have the right people with the right training, that will make all the difference. That I can tell you. And so those children, you have the whole school, the whole class, so on and so forth. I hope that it doesn't get overlooked because, as you said, they are not going to be in school anymore. And that's going to be hard because I've seen situation with my own family and with my nieces and so forth where children leave, like one school and move to like a different school and stuff of that sort. And I can see how it was hard on them. And that's one of the reasons when the former classmate comes back, um, I can see how excited it is for both parties when they are reuniting and so forth together. And that separation, even though it's not lost, because you can still communicate through social media and texts and all of these types of things, it's still hard, but you can still communicate. But when somebody's gone, when in terms of the death, that's hard. And I think a lot of times it gets overlooked, like people don't really, pay attention to it. And because the kids wouldn't necessarily say anything or ask, or maybe don't know how to kind of do it. But it's extremely hard because eventually when they get to learn the reasoning behind it, they can be affected in all the different ways that we talked about of maybe not wanting to kind of travel, in a boat and things of that sort, because people do this normal thing. In fact, a classmate of mine or a former classmate of mine, she went to the number 63 beach. This is quite a few years ago, and she was just driving. I'm not sure how speed she was driving, but she was driving at the beach, and she get accident at the beach. That car toppled over, and she lost her life.
Oh wow.
Um, Yes, and so when I heard that, of course, that was hard on me too. Like, because I know this person, we sat together, side by side and all of that. So it's always it's extremely hard. And even though when I speak, I want to make it clear to people too. Like I always have a smile on my face because I try to make sure that nothing takes away a smile from me, kind of thing. And so you will notice, like I always give a giggle and so forth, but it's part of my personality. I don't want people to kind of comment and say, "Hey, Ken did an interview about death and people losing life," and the guest was laughing and so forth. Behind that smile is a lot of pain. That I can tell you. So people don't always realize that, and so that's one of the reason these kinds of conversation. That's one of the reason. I'm bringing up all of this in terms of helping. Even the people in the classroom and so forth, and in the community at large. It's so important. And I hope that people who are watching will know that we all have a role to play because you never know when it will be raining in our house, right? As they say.
Good evening to Shahid Baksh and Geeta Narain. Thanks for tuning in. And Shahid is asking, what did the safety officer check before the boat leave dock? So that is another thing that's up in the air for questioning. Who was following the protocol really? Because as far as I'm concerned, that they don't know really how much people lost their life or how much people went on the boat. Now, Dr. Narain, that what should parents or teachers look for when school opens? The other thing is that what's sad too, that some children were going to spend time with their grandparents in Region One. Some were going to visit relatives and to spend time for the school holiday. What should some parents look for? You know, in these children that survive and some of the other siblings.
So I've kind of you will so I
You,
believe I heard most of what you said, but
yeah.
because I was having a little bit of a difficulty in hearing you, kind of thing. But I heard most of what you said. I catch the part where you said I believe a few kids were kind of traveling, going to their grandparents or something along that
Right,
line,
right,
right?
right.
Yeah. And so, sorry, go ahead. And what was the last part of the question? What they should be
How
saying to what or to who?
yeah, what should they what look for in these children that survived this incident, and how do you talk to to the siblings who lost a
Oh my
child,
goodness.
a sibling there?
Oh yes. So this is something we deal with at our workplace all the time. And you'll be amazed to know how many people lose their siblings here in Ontario where I live. About 250,000 people yearly will lose their sibling of theirs. Just so you know that, 250,000 I'm talking about. Um, so the reality is that you have to come clean. There was one lady who kept kept it a secret from her children for a long time because she didn't know how to do it. So she came looking for professional help. So the sooner the better. So you really have to be kind of open and let them know and be transparent. Give them the time they need to grieve. So obviously when they hear of that, it wouldn't be an easy thing to hear. So you now, whoever is delivering that message, have to be ready for the reaction. They have to be strong for that reaction because obviously there will be cries and shock, and pay attention to the silence as well too, because they might be shocked themselves and might not know how to respond, might not say much. That doesn't mean that they're not feeling pain or disappointment or not understanding it as well too. And depending on the age of the child, depending on the of the mental capacity of the individual, um, that will determine, the length of the conversation, the kind of things you can share, because you do not want to, you don't want to lie to, the sibling. You want to be transparent, but you want to give them enough information so that they kind of understand and they know. But you want to kind of do the icing on the cake in a sense that letting them know that, we're here to kind of support and help you. They might not know what that means, kind of thing, but really have to stay connected. Honestly, the younger ones, well, it's going to be hard because they have not developed, that capacity to deal with challenges in life, because in life people go through all kind of different challenges, right? And death is one of them. And so they will need the help the most. Not that adults don't need that help. We'll be broken ourselves too, but we have life experience. We've had challenges. We kind of manage to get up, when we fall. We have experienced that, all of these types of things. But you have to, and I think so. One of the good things, one of the things that help us, as study shows, we do that at our workplace. We do a lot of group counseling with kids, so people come together and they share their own experience as to what worked for them, in terms of dealing with it. They're also having a space to share, their grief and how they feel and all of that. I don't know if Guyana do all of that kind of thing, but those are things will be important, extremely important.
I narrowed down it because beyond 1 hour. I want to ask you two important questions, and one of them is to ask for the mother who lost 7 kids. Remember, she witnessed all of this sitting down there, and couldn't
Mhm.
have saved any one of her children.
Mhm.
How do she begin to heal from things like, oh my God, I could not save any of my children, but I'm alive? How do she feel about that guilt that she'll be carrying throughout her life that's left?
Yeah. So there's a good chance, and this is only us talking based on our experience and all that. There's a good chance that she will say to herself, she wish all of her children would have survived, and her being the one that kind of lose her life, so to speak. So
Yes.
she will. I can almost speak with confidence here that she will have, and there are times when she might end up wanting to blame herself as well too, and that's where the counseling and the professional help comes in, because I can almost, I mean, I would assume that it probably happened so quickly, that because this is not something people were expecting, or even if they were having some challenge there, they obviously were hoping for the best kind of thing. And so I don't know the age group of the kids and so forth. I saw some pictures. Based on that, I can see that they are like like older kids and younger ones as well too. But definitely the mother will have a lot of questions for herself. She'll be blaming herself, good possibility there. She'll question herself, she'll question her faith as well too, as to
Yes, yes.
why her, right? And things of that sort. I know when they had a 911 situation, there was I can't remember the name or anything like that, but there was one gentleman who was on CNN, and all of his employee um, had a bunch of employee, like a few hundred employee die. Nobody survived except him because he was not in there. He was elsewhere. And the guy mentioned openly on CNN. He said that he does not believe in anything anymore because
Right,
if there was a God, how and so forth. So people lose faith as well too, kind of thing,
right,
because
yes,
it's affecting them in so badly that they lose that faith now because they're thinking if the faith was that good, then they would have not gone through all of that pain and so forth, right? But obviously, again, this is just a conversation. I don't want any religious leader to reach out to me, kind of thing here. But different people believe different things. So different people believe that whatever you and I are going through here, this is what was meant to be, and it's part of karma. All of these type of things. We don't need to get there. Well, we need to talk about exactly what you brought forward here. How is it that the mother will deal with this kind of situation that she's dealing with now? But that mother is in shock, um, because I've seen a lot of mothers in situation very recently where the mothers were hoping that their child will wake up, and they're saying that they believe in miracle. And then I said to myself, my goodness, isn't that something that they cannot believe that this is actually happening? They believe in that. They're hoping that that's just a dream they're kind of going through there for sure.
um also I'm going to ask you, there was people on the boat who probably tried to save the survivors, them who made it out.
Mhm.
What advice you have for them, especially they probably was trying to help somebody too and they couldn't help? What what you think will be going through their minds after this is done and the dust is settled?
Yes, for sure. So, I hope that they don't blame themselves, for anything at all. I know one fella I was watching. I'm not sure if you saw the story where one guy he ties some bottles or something like that together and kind of float his way out. Did
Yeah,
you see that one?
I didn't see that one, no.
Oh my goodness, what an amazing story! That guy, critical thinking. He found some empty bottles and he tied them together. But
That's
what an
smart.
amazing story!
That's smart.
And a few yes, and a few people survived through that. For the folks who had to get out of there knowing of the situation, knowing that they may have left somebody there as well too, because they're not thinking, they don't know. I hope that they don't blame themselves because that's can be hard mentally for them to kind of think of that, and they will have all of these kinds of thoughts, from time to time, kind of thing. When you're traveling, when you go in somewhere, when you're in a plane, the very first thing they say to you is to make sure that you are taking care of you first, and put me, make sure you put a mask on first and so forth before you help somebody else. For those who, were able to get out of there, alive and somehow manage to assist along too, well, that is a great thing, but don't, put the blame. But the blame will happen. It's just a natural thing. And now that they can process things a lot better in that situation during the time when people will be panicking and so forth, people don't make proper decision. Now when they are going to kind of process it and reflect back, they probably will be saying to themselves, oh, they wish if they would have done that, they would, all of these types of things. There's nothing they can do now. They did, you know things based on, whatever, they were thinking at the moment based on, what was happening. So they can't turn back anything there at all, right? So they just have to kind of really come to that point now, kind of thing. But it's hard. When people speak, all I could feel is like pain, 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 pain. But I'm not sure. I really give them kudos because they have a lot of strength. Because I'm not sure how they do it. When you hear people talking about the lost, partner and a baby,
A
it's
pregnant
hard.
woman.
Oh my goodness, as well too. And then like when I'm having my baby in my hand. I have a like not a baby anymore, like
Right.
a toddler, a 2 year old. But when you have them in your hand and you're thinking like, here we are, we have it, everything that we need in life and everything else, and then you're watching all of this, it's hard. It's extremely hard, and yes, it's a million times harder for those folks because I watch it and I had to discontinue watching it. It just didn't fit well with me. Kind of continue to watch it.
Yeah, my Anita Ishdaulatram is watching. BBD Camp, a very good evening to you. All those people lost their lives. Now you're talking about blame. Listen, Bibi, I wish you had listened to this program from the very beginning. No one is blaming anyone for this thing, and that's what we are talking about. We should not be blaming anybody for this now. We are asking for love, right? Empathy, during this difficult time. Guyana is mourning the loss of so many people who have lost their lives. And it's a time that we are asking for love and compassion and empathy. And now you come on this program listening and you start to write nonsense. Why don't you come off the program? People like you are the one that causing a lot of stress when it comes to Facebook and these kind of things. So on that note, Dr. Narayan, that on the closing, what do you want to say for those people who are experiencing pain? People like me, people like those who have lost their family members, husband, wife, parents, our community who lost someone. How do we ease the pain, and what's your advice to them? And we are talking to Dr. Narayan Dat out of Kitchener in Canada. He's a doctor in social work. And I got to tell you, one Guyanese I'm very proud of, over 200 awards in the work that he does in Canada. He's one of the kind of person that I'm very proud of, that I bring on my program to share his love and his empathy. I do not bring any kind of, I don't want to say lagubag on this program. I bring him on because we share the same value. We love our country, Guyana, and so we always, when something happened in Guyana, I always team up with him so we could bring love, empathy, some care, and some understanding when it comes to mental illness, mental health, and any other thing. Go ahead, Dr. Narayan. That.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to thank you for really making the effort to do these kinds of show. Like as I mentioned to you before, the work you do is unmatched, because this is important, and it is very clear that not everybody will get the message that you and I are trying to kind of send through. People misunderstand things, people don't get it, and I don't know who the BB is, but it goes to show that she doesn't get the message, and that is a huge problem, kind of thing. And she decided to kind of respond, not understanding what we're saying here, which is part of the problem society today. But come back to the situation here. It is extremely important for us to kind of somehow keep our eyes open, right? Know that a little bit of empathy can go a far way. Yes, the government has an obligation to do certain things, but all the question that you brought up, Ken, what can the churches do? What can the broader community do, and so forth? Everybody can kind of contribute. And I also want folks to know that yes, that's happening there. But we also, eventually will be facing some sort of debt and loss. And it wouldn't necessarily be, in this kind of shape or form, but everybody will live to experience that. And if we do, if we cannot, find a way to make our contribution, like what you are doing right now, this is what you're doing. You're making your contribution based on the situation that's happening here, right? If we cannot, pause to make a contribution, to a situation as such, then we really have a problem, right? And so I would encourage folks to be mindful, think before they speak, kind of thing. I know people are upset and they sometimes they don't do any better and so forth, but that's not an excuse per se, right? Let's hope and pray though. I'm not trying to put any spiritual power views on anybody, but most people will agree that prayer can go a far way, and sometimes that's all that's needed. Sometimes that's all your family want to hear, kind of thing. No money can bring anybody back, and so I've known of people who been in this situation, refuse to accept money because and so forth, because it didn't fit with their values. And so again, so this is serious stuff. This is not about political thing and so forth. And let's use our common sense here. A lot of smart people here. So that's all I want to say here. And again, I want to thank you. Thank to the people who are viewing this. But if I were you, and if you're watching right now, if you can hit that share button, that's going to be the right thing to do. right? So that's going to be your contribution. So think about it. That's all you have to do to contribute to the situation. Just hit that share button. So thank you so much, Ken. And I wish you all the very best and continue the great work you do on your end. And you do the thing that importance to you. You do the thing that important matters to, to the broader community. And you have a strong connection, just like me, for your country, Guyana, right?
That's right. I have left Guyana over 30 years, and I want to say that I still have, if you cut my heart, I tell my friends that you will still find Guyana, the map of Guyana in my heart. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say thank you very much for tuning into the Ken Rampersaud Show on Island Zone Radio. I like to come on every Monday evening at 8 p.m. I want to say a very good evening to Amral Maldramutu. Thanks for tuning in. But, ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you, and I'm so serious about this, that I want to know you to know that this is a disaster that happened in Guyana on Saturday. I want to let's not bring politics into this. Let's not bring hate into this. Bring love, empathy, and most importantly, let's pray for all those families, those survivors, those who have lost someone in this tragedy. Let's pray for them. Let's pray for our leaders in Guyana that they will do the right thing for the people of Guyana and for the people of region number one. Let's pray for, ladies and gentlemen, and be a good soul in this world. This world is full of so much trickery and so much problems, and it's so easy to get pulled into all the negativity. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to see a difference in this world, please be the change that you want to see. On that note, I want to wish all of you a very good night and thanks for watching on. Again, Dr. Naranda, thank you very much for being my partner when Guyana is in distress all the time. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you very much.